both. Now we're going to get started with David Cameron and Ukraine in a sense, but David Cameron was in Washington yesterday. And we're going to label this as a sick mind. And I have to say, David Cameron has a sick mind. I'll explain that in a second. But just before I do, this was him in Washington yesterday. But just today, just before we came on the news programme, the UK government has announced a Ukraine defence pact between the UK and Ukraine. And the quote that Charles particularly noticed from this says the UK has now provided almost £12 billion in military, humanitarian and economic support to Ukraine and has often been the first mover in vital lethal aid from Storm Shadow cruise missiles to a squadron of Challenger 2 tanks. So perhaps that sets the scene on why I'm suggesting David Cameron has a sick mind, because while he was in Washington yesterday, well, he began by going to see Donald Trump. He then met Antony Blinken, but he was really there to try to get past the blockage in funding from Congress. So he was there to try to bully Congress into continuing to fund arms into Ukraine. But during the press conference afterwards, this is what he had to say.
Listen to me, I argue that it is extremely good value for money for the United States and for others. Perhaps for about 5 or 10% of your defense budget, almost half of Russia's pre-war military equipment has been destroyed without the loss of a single American life. This is an investment in United States security. So that's what I would say.
So I'd like to get your thoughts on this from both of you. Vanessa first. I mean, am I wrong in suggesting that there's sick mind at work that would make a statement like that?
So what he's basically said is hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian lives sacrificed in a NATO proxy war against Russia is more bang for your buck.
Indeed. Yes.
Translation, right?
Yeah. Yes.
That's disgusting. I mean, it's unbelievable, or maybe not, but it is sick.
Charles, what are your thoughts?
Good afternoon, Mike. Good afternoon, all. Well, I think obviously Vanessa makes a very good point. The other thing he refers to is an investment in American security, and given past experience, if we're to take it at face value, antagonizing or indeed creating a sense of aggression against Russia is only likely to have the backfire effect of further anti-Western, anti-American sentiment. So I think that's another thing that he's very much overlooked. And also knocking Russia back into the Stone Age economically would not be to the benefit of any of the nations that are talking about it.
Indeed. So thank you for that. Now, in the meantime, in Ukraine itself, the Ukrainians have now attacked the Zaporizhzhya Nuclear Power Station twice over the last 3 or 4 days. This is TASS reporting Ukraine drone shot down over Zaporizhzhya Nuclear Power Plant. Debris falls on roof of Unit 6. This is the quote from the ZNPP itself. Ukraine's attempts to shell the Zaporizhzhya nuclear power plant continue today. A kamikaze drone was shot down over the power plant. It fell on the roof of the 6th power unit. Threats to the ZNPP's safety have not been identified. Now, Mario Grossi, the Director General of the IAEA, had this to say: "This is a major escalation of the nuclear safety and security dangers facing the Zaporizhzhya nuclear power plant. Such reckless attacks significantly increase the risk of a major nuclear accident and must cease immediately." Well, what was the American position on this? This is Matthew Miller, the State Department spokesman, said. He said it's dangerous that they've done that. That's the Ukrainians, and we continue to call on Russia to withdraw its military and civilian personnel from the plant, to return full control of the plant to the competent Ukrainian authorities, and refrain from taking any actions that could result in a nuclear incident at the plant. Again, I just wonder what the mentality is of these people, Vanessa, where the Ukrainians bomb a nuclear power station, and the US says that Russia needs to refrain from doing anything which is going to result in a nuclear incident.
Yeah, I mean, it's, they're just in constant denial mode. I mean, when Israel bombs an Iranian embassy on Syrian soil, they deny it. They deny that Israel is committing atrocities in Gaza or is actually carrying out a genocide. And now, basically it's passed the buck back to Russia, even though their proxy is the one that's carried out the attack. It is just obscene, actually.
Yes. So in the meantime, the obscenity continues because the RAF has now deployed a squadron to Romania. So here they are. And this is all about NATO's eastern flank and protecting NATO's eastern flank. Of course, this is close to the Black Sea. And so the RAF Typhoon fighters are now taking part in a 4-month mission. It's a sort of rotating mission. So they've done this before. They'll do it again in the future, I'm sure, with jets from 9 Bomber Squadron, along with more than 200 RAF personnel from 140 Expeditionary Air Wing, deployed from RAF Lossiemouth into Romania, and they'll fly alongside the Romanian Air Force as part of NATO's enhanced air policing mission until August. And of course, this is all about engaging with Russian aircraft. So they're very keen to make sure that we know that aircraft frequently intercepted by the RAF during previous air policing missions include Russian long-range strategic bombers, surveillance aircraft and transport aircraft, and various other intercepts, they say, are key to maintaining airspace security and protecting international borders, as well as acting as a clear deterrent against threats. This is what Grant Shapps had to say. Our NATO Air Policing deployment helps keep Europe's skies secure, ready to launch at a moment's notice for the next 4 months. The Typhoon pilots will respond with professionalism to threats and incidents in support of our collective security. Charles, later on, you're going to be talking about war readiness and so on, but are you buying any of the rhetoric from the British government on this?
No, I'm afraid not. And as you say, I will come on to specify exactly why not. But no, I mean, it at the moment seems like an awful lot of bluster with no substance at all.
Indeed, it gets even better because there's been an update on Aukus. Now, of course, Aukus is the trilateral security and defence partnership between Australia, UK and US. It was first announced in September 2021. Well, as they would describe it, it sees the 3 nations work together on a range of capabilities to support a free and open Indo-Pacific, including conventionally armed nuclear-powered submarine capability for the UK and Australia under Pillar 1 of the partnership. Now, of course, this is about moving the war narrative towards China. And again, let's bring Grant Shapps on screen here. And he had this to say: in a more dangerous world, relationships and partnerships like AUKUS are more important than ever. We've always said we would engage additional nations in our Pillar 2 work as it progresses, and collaborating with like-minded countries will strengthen the partnership further. Now, the question is, what's he talking about? Well, they said that with respect to Pillar 2, they would bring new countries in, and in this case, they're talking about Japan. So the Japanese very keen to get involved. The Chinese not so excited about it as we might expect. So this was a release from the Chinese embassy in the UK through CCTV, the Chinese news agency, and they're saying the Chinese embassy in the United Kingdom on Tuesday voiced firm opposition to the United States, the UK and Australia's insistence on advancing the so-called trilateral security partnership in disregard of the wide concerns of regional countries and the international community about nuclear proliferation risks. And they're saying we urge the US, the UK and Australia to abandon the Cold War mentality, stop cobbling together exclusionary blocs, and cease stirring trouble and camp confrontation in the Asia-Pacific region. Japan must learn lessons from history and be prudent about its words and actions when it comes to military security. And again, this is expansionism. We're going to come on to NATO expansionism in just a second. But Vanessa, again, we're expanding our reach with a view to putting pressure on certain countries. And how are they supposed to respond to this?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? We are constantly in the West, and the allies or the proxies of the West are constantly expanding the conflict by effectively violating international law and provoking the expansion of the conflict, and then acting victim when there is a response to the provocation, despite the fact that Russia, China, and Iran are trying to maintain an equilibrium, which the West is constantly trying to break.
Yes, and just on this, continuing on the subject of expansion, coming back to NATO, and of course the discussion has been had over the last couple of years, particularly since the special military operation in Ukraine kicked off, about why Russia is doing this, and denials from the West about any guarantees given to Russia about expansion. Well, more documents have been released now through the National Security Archive in the United States, and basically admitting that they had promised Russia that there would be no interference in the internal affairs of CIS countries, that's the Commonwealth of Independent States. And in fact, the documents show that they then, having given those guarantees, this is in the 1994 to 1997 time period, they went straight on ahead and did interfere in those countries to the degree that they pursued colour revolution. So I'll just take a quote here from Open Democracy to give an example. This is from a report called Democratization, NGOs and Colour Revolutions. And they say these three revolutions, the Rose Revolution in Georgia, the Orange Revolution in Ukraine, and the Tulip Revolution in Kyrgyzstan, each followed a near identical trajectory. All were spearheaded by the American Democratization international NGOs working at the behest of the US foreign policy establishment. And this is the key point. Russia in particular has been on the receiving end of, and the countries around Russia have been on the receiving end of the activities from international NGOs. And that has resulted in, or assisted the expansion of NATO eastwards and helped build this pressure. But just to end this segment, I've just got a little bit of video here from Ukraine. And let's just have a look at this. So Vanessa, just very quickly, just to do a quick translation, the children there were singing "Our Father is Bandera," and I mean it's just incredible the claims that that there's no Nazi interest or Nazi indoctrination in Ukraine, and then we see video clips like that.
Yeah, I mean the extremist supremacist indoctrination goes across all of the countries that are allied with the West, including, of course, Israel, which starts there. The indoctrination starts in kindergarten, and clearly the same in Ukraine. But yep, there's no Nazi ideology in Ukraine.
Indeed. Okay, thank you for that.